Hi, everyone. Hello. I'd like to kindly ask you to join me on the stage. Let me know if you can see me or hear me in the chat box. Hi, everyone. Right, if you are in the reception or in one of the session rooms, please click on the stage tab on the left ribbon of the screen, and you will be directed to the stage. As you know, Hopin works the best on Google Chrome, so if you would like to join your browser to Chrome, it's the time now. And we give you a couple of minutes as I go through some notes that I have, if you would like to change your browser. Thank you. Good. Azita Jan, thank you very much. Right. I'd like to extend the warmest welcome to all of you on behalf of Women of MENA in Technology London team, myself, Aref Taqikhani, and my wonderful teammates, Mahtab Ghamsari, Aida Mashkuri, and Gelare Tagizadeh. I have a few announcements to make, and then I will hand over the stage to Mahtab, who will be moderating this exciting fireside chat today for us. The first announcement I have is a reminder of a Women of MENA in Technology annual conference, which is held virtually again this year after the incredibly successful virtual event we had last year. It will be on November 4th and 5th. Aida John, if you can send the hop-in link for the registration page, it would be great. Thank you, Aida. Thank you very much. Also, London's last event of the year, 2021, will be in November. And I'm glad to announce that it will be focused group mentorship sessions. So stay tuned. Follow us on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so that you will be informed of this exciting event as well. Also, our global team normally has this annual happy hour event in December, end of the year event. That is a free event that you can get to know your community, other city members, other city communities, and network with them. So be in touch, stay tuned, and you will learn about them on our social media platforms. The last but not least, the London team is very determined to go back to in-person events, you guys. We miss you. So we're excited to announce that we will we have started planning our events for 2022, and we're hoping that they are in person. So if you are, yay, exciting, isn't it, Gelare? So if you are working in a company or a university and you would like to collaborate with us or host us, contact us on London at womenofmena'intechnology.com. And we will arrange meetings with you to talk to you and arrange events, in-person events that you and your company or university host and sponsor. Right, I think I spoke too much. Before I go, this fireside chat is being recorded and it will be available on YouTube in very near future. So if you'd like to, look at it later on or share it with your friends, colleagues, you can find it on our YouTube channel. If you have any question, there is a Q&A tab on the stage on your left side of the screen. Write your questions, and towards the end of the fireside chat, We will go through those questions together. After the chat, also, we will continue networking in the sessions. We have 2 rooms. One is the Women of MENA London team room, and the other is a room to talk to our speakers in face-to-face if you would like to talk to them and ask your questions face-to-face. Right, that's it from me. I'd like now to ask our speakers to come on stage and join me. Hi, Shirin Jan.
Hello.
Hi, Mahtab.
Hello.
Wonderful. I leave you to it. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Mahtab Ghamsari and Shirin Dehghan. Bye from me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arif June. And just before I start, if anybody has issues hearing my sound, just put a note in the chat and I'll repeat myself because I know my connection could be a bit shaky. So I'll do a quick introduction before passing it on to Shirin. My name is Mahtab. I've been with Women of MENA in Tech since 2017. I work as an engineer and product manager in London, and I'm also into music and music technology, and those are my 2 passions, if we could say that. Very happy to be here with Shirin, and I've known her since I've moved to London as an inspirational figure within the startup community. And yeah, that's about it. I think we can move on to the main event. So Shirin Jun, welcome to this session, and thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So as with most of our events, for anyone who doesn't know you, could you give us a brief, well, maybe not so brief, introduction? How did you get to where you are? What's your story?
Yeah, sure. So let me sort of maybe roll back to kind of how I ended up in the UK, and then I'll sort of roll forward. So I was born in Iran. I was born in Tehran. I am from an Azeri family, so I speak Turkish as well as Farsi as well as English.
Amazing.
And I moved with my parents to the UK when I was 14. So I actually have done my schooling in Iran. I finished my first year of high school, and then we moved to the UK. And then I continued my school here, and realized that the sort of mathematics in Iran is so much more advanced than was it in the UK. So that was a very happy event. But of course there were other challenges, as there is always with moving. But because I was young, obviously I accustomed myself to the UK culture very quickly. And the education system. I did electronics. So when I finished my kind of the high school equivalent here, I did electronics at one of the leading schools in the universities in the UK. And then I moved and I went into the mobile communication sector. So 1992, when I graduated, mobile was the new AI. So everyone goes on about AI now and how artificial intelligence is going to like change the world, etc. Well, back in those days, mobile communication was the thing to be in. So I managed to weave myself into that sector, and I worked for 10 years as an engineer, as a radio communication engineer. And that was obviously, various projects that I did, but really the key one that got me into the startup, which I will now tell you the idea that I had, was actually working for Vodafone on what was then the leading bleeding edge of mobile technology, 3G. Now everyone's gonna like go, oh my God, you're a dinosaur, right? 3G, like this is so old. Well, yeah, I am that old. I'm 52, so I've seen 2G and then migration to 3G. But at that time, it was a pretty big revolution. So before 3G was standardized, we could only have voice calls on our mobile phone and send texts, very low data rates. But 3G was going to change all that, right? It was going to be like faster data rate. You were going to have video phone calls, everything we take for granted right now. It was the vision that everyone had in the mobile communication sector for the future. And so when I was working for Vodafone Research and Development, 3G was the thing that I was working on. And as I was working on this technology, I could see that, basically I was one of very few engineers that really understood this technology. And there were many professionals, technical professionals out there who only understood the second generation 2G, and they didn't really know how to handle data. They didn't know how to manage a network, a mobile network that had to, not just manage voice now, had to manage, people watching cats fall off the tree and things like that. So, and seeing this sort of gap in the market that I kind of saw, it gave me the idea for my startup, right? And this was all consuming. So when I was, I was thinking about it, every single moment of the day. And, once I had the idea in my head, I couldn't let it go. And it was, it was just consuming. And I tried to kind of think, okay, so how do I move this forward? And of course, then I had 2 small children. Well, actually, roll back a bit. I was pregnant, actually. So I was about to have as my second child, and I had my daughter. It was 3.5, and I had a job, and I was we were reliant on my salary, so I couldn't just like leave my job, right? Financially, it was really like not a good decision or a wise decision, it seemed. So it was really hard. So I was trying to see if I can raise money whilst working for Vodafone, and that didn't go well because nobody's going to invest in anyone who's not 100%, completely focused on their idea and so on. And also, the other thing I found was that no one invests in an idea, right? You can't just say, oh, I've got this great idea. Why don't you give me some money? And everyone's going to, like, the investor's going to look at you and say, well, go on, do something about it, make a prototype, show me something, and maybe I'll think about it. And so anyway, so basically I used my maternity leave. So when I gave birth to my son, I used the maximum maternity leave I had to actually develop my software, right? So I wrote the code, and I also managed to involve my husband, who's also an engineer, and we both worked in a similar sector. I was a radio communication engineer. He was kind of the software guy. So we sort of brought the 2 experiences together, and we made the first prototype. And then I tried to raise money again, right? So having failed to raise money on just an idea and being completely employed by Vodafone, which didn't work, I then tried to raise money on the back of a prototype, and again realized that, unless I leave my job at Vodafone, no one's going to take me seriously. And do
you think that's the same today?
Yeah. Definitely. Like, no investor is going to invest in you if you have multiple jobs here and there. I mean, you've got to show the confidence that, look, I am so confident that I'm all in, right? And so anyway, so I was really battling. I had this battle with myself. I can't leave my job financially; it doesn't make sense. And I said to my husband, look, I really got to leave my job, because if I don't, we're not going to raise money. And he was like, no, don't. Financially, it's a terrible decision. I knew it was a terrible decision. Anyway, so we had this kind of thing going on. And then one day I went to work. I sat at my desk. I remember very clearly. It was Monday morning. It was 8:30 a.m. And we just sat on my desk and just like, right, wrote my resignation letter, went and handed it to my boss. And then I called my husband and told him. And so he was like,
no choice.
what have you done? Like, are you crazy, woman? I'm like, yeah, I had to do it. It's done now. Too late. I've handed in my resignation. And I had 3 months notice period, and I negotiated down to 2 months. And so, yeah, that was it. It took him some time to kind of lift himself off the floor and, kind of feel okay again. I think his heart stopped for a minute. But he was like, okay, I'm fine. Like, it's done now. I'm supportive. Let's really see if we can get funding for this.
Did your company know the reason?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Did your team know the reason you were leaving?
Yeah. I told Vodafone that I was leaving to set up my company. They were like, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, it's going to be in 3G, right? But I didn't want to like tell them everything about, my idea. So I was just very vague, but at the same time, I told them, yes, I want to set up on my own. And I think everyone thought I was crazy at that time as well. And anyway, so I left, and I was faced with basically a phone. And in those days, internet wasn't really kind of like this, right? There were no Zoom calls or anything. You had fax machines, which is like so old. So you literally had a telephone and you had a fax machine and you had to get on with it. And that was kind of all the technology, communication technology you had available. And of course you had the mobile, which you could make phone calls, but yeah, that was pretty much the same as having a fixed line. And also the other thing that was not available in those days was help, right? So like these days, there's so much help, especially in Europe. Like in the States, they're far ahead from us in terms of startup culture and help and so on. Especially Silicon Valley, right? They're amazing, amazing people. And even when 92, right? There were lots of mentors and really, really successful people that could help the next generation of, leaders come through. In UK, startup wasn't really in fashion in those days, right? And so there wasn't an incubator. There wasn't any help at all. There was like a few things that the government had done, but it was terrible. So I pretty much had to learn, as I went along on my journey. And kind of the first thing that I did was really to go after some people who had credibility in the industry. And I knew I was a good engineer. I knew my stuff, but I knew that I knew nothing about business, right? I'd never run a company before. I'd never sold anything in my life. And I knew that I needed those skills and I needed some people to help me. So I managed to get a former CTO of Vodafone UK as my chairman. I still to this day don't know how I managed to do that, but I did. And I managed to attract the person who was heading was heading British Telecom R&D research on my board. So I collected these really icons, as I call them, in the mobile sector onto my board, because I wanted to give the outside world credibility, right? And say that by definition, because these people are on my board, that means they believe in me. So therefore you should too. So that was kind of for me, the credibility side was important. So when I set that up, then, I started looking for funding. And, that was going really well until it wasn't. So, getting funding, it's actually really, really tough, right? So people, you have very good conversations and you think things are going really well. And, they even gave me a term sheet, right? And I was like, wow, this is easy, right? 6 months after I left Vodafone, I have two, amazing people on my board, and I've got a term sheet for £500,000 to go into my company, and I was like flying. And then the arrogance, or my arrogance, hit in, and I started really negotiating hard on the terms, and I was pushing back, and I think, you know, I pushed back too much until basically they're just like, okay, we're pulling this off. So they removed the term sheet. It was the only term sheet I had, the only investor. And I was so confident in closing it, I told my husband to leave his job. So he had just literally handed his notice, and I had the term sheet pulled from me. I was like, oh my God, this isn't happening, right? I don't think I slept that night. I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I literally, you know, our family income is going to dive to zero in a month. And anyway, so I called an emergency board meeting, and I phoned my chairman, who who himself was a wealthy individual. He was one of the founders of Vodafone, so you know he'd done well out of it. And because he'd been working with me for literally, by that time it was 8 months, and you know he had sufficient confidence that he saved me, if I'm being honest. Him and the guy who ran BT, so they put in some money, very small amount of money compared to what I was offered, but you know, it was enough to keep the lights on for like a couple of years. And so I took no salary. Well, I hadn't taken any salary up to then, but I decided not to take any salary whatsoever for another 2 years. And we also gave a job to an Iranian engineer who was working with remotely, and then we brought him to the UK. And he was a brilliant guy, did the GUI stuff. And so basically 3 engineers, myself, my husband, and Majid, who we moved to the UK with his family. And the 3 of us sort of continued with developing the product. This was our first product, and things started to pick up really as I thought it would in the market. So we had, you know, very big companies like Vodafone, like O2, like Orange, you know, Three, for example, Three UK. These guys were all interested to trial the product, and the trials were going really well. And at the same time, I was talking to venture capitalists in order to raise money. And eventually one of them said, okay, I've seen enough. You've got really good customer, you know, interest. We hadn't sold anything yet, but there was a lot of interest, a lot of trials, you know, of the product. And then they actually put in, you know, a substantial amount of money into the company. And that, you know, that sort of back in, I started the company in 2002, and bootstrapped it until 2005.
Did you know at the time that when you started that this is a B2B model, that you would be selling to these other companies?
I knew that because, you know, I was in the industry, and the product that I had wasn't a consumer product. It was for other engineers. It was to make their job automated and easier. So so basically we got the funding, and I was working on this massive contract with Vodafone, my old employer, and this was a huge contract for the company. It was like it was 12 million euro. Because we were trying to sell to all of Vodafone, you know, whichever country they were, like whether it's UK, Portugal, Egypt, wherever. And I was working on this, and things were going really, really well. We got the investment in, and I was like, okay, this is it, right? My company is going to fly, and it was really, really going well until it wasn't. So
how many times does that happen in the lifetime of a startup?
Well, you did say, tell me about your story. So, you know, you got to wait.
Yeah.
So we had a German competitor, which we were fighting like tooth and nail on this contract. And you know what? I knew nothing about selling to a big organization. I was an engineer, and my product was amazing. but I knew nothing about sales and marketing. And I spent all of my time convincing their engineers, and the engineers loved my product. You know, they thought it was like the most amazing, the most easiest. It fitted with all their other systems. I knew what other systems they use. I was in Vodafone, right? I was on the in. But I didn't go and talk to the guy who had the money, right? It wasn't the engineers that were going to spend the money. It was the budget holder. And I wasn't talking to them, and they didn't know who I was. And so this German competitor who had started 2 years earlier than us, they had already kind of gone through that maturity, and they had a head of sales who was really good. Rummaged through our rubbish to find out how many people we were in the country, in the company at the time. I'm not kidding. He actually came to our offices and found the garbage and went through it to find out how many staff we were hiring, just so that he could go and tell Vodafone how small we were. You know, he would use anything he could to win the contract and also put us down. So he was very good, by the way. I admire what he did. I should have done that. Anyway, so what basically happened was these guys, the German competitor, was meeting with the budget holders, and because they were German and Vodafone Germany, because also selling to a very big organization, you have to understand the politics a lot. Mm-hmm. You have to understand where the centers of power are in the big organization. And during the 90s, the center of power moved from UK to Germany for various reasons. And this move happened whilst I was out of Vodafone, so I didn't realize this. And I was thinking, oh, UK makes all the decisions. Well, actually, no, the Germans did. And of course, the Germans buy from Germans. That's one thing. And they had a long-standing relationship. So anyway, we lost that contract. Right. It wasn't even like, you know, you have half the Vodafone, you have the other half, right? Share the contract. We completely lost it. Yeah, I've cried twice during my journey as an entrepreneur. And that was the first time after I lost the Vodafone contract. I literally went home. I didn't tell anyone when I received the official, I knew I had lost it, but when I received the official email that, sorry, you've lost the contract, it's going to your competitor, I didn't tell anyone, just closed my laptop, went home, had a good cry. That's the only way for me to get over that. And then after I had a good cry, I thought, okay, I've got to go and get my hair done. I've got to go and get my hair done because I've got a board meeting tomorrow and I've got to deliver this news, but I want to deliver it looking good. Right. So anyway, I phoned up a hairdresser, made an appointment, went and got my hair done, felt a lot better, told the family about the terrible news. And then the next day I went and told the board. But obviously entrepreneurs are always positive. Like I was always looking on the positive side. I said, well, look, Vodafone is just, you know, one group operator. We've got so many out there, and look, you know, our product got to the top 2, so we've got a market to go after. So that's, so everyone was like re-energized after hearing obviously the bad news, and we were like, okay, we're going to go and conquer this operator, we're going to conquer this country. But of course, what I didn't realize is that when your competitor gets ahead of you and gets momentum, actually what happens is that the market looks towards whoever is winning. So literally within 2 months, 80% of my pipeline disappeared. And what happened was my competitor took the opportunity at every moment and every meeting that they had with every operator and every telecommunication company to say that we lost to them at Vodafone. And so every meeting I was going to, everyone was asking me, so tell me, why did you lose the Vodafone contract? I was like, okay, shoot me right now. Like, this was now becoming the big thing that I had to explain myself to some bloody stranger why I lost the Vodafone. I mean, they did an amazing job, right? Using the momentum they had, and literally they were killing me in Europe. It was a bloodbath, literally. Like I was losing left, right, and center. It was like, and then I thought, okay, I'm not going to win in Europe. Like, these guys are just like, they're going everywhere and they're telling everybody. I mean, Vodafone is a big deal. Like, it's the league operator in Europe. And, the fact that I lost that, it's like, what's wrong with you? There must be something wrong with you. Okay, then we're going to go with your German operator, that kind of mentality. So I made the best decision in my life, and I left European market and I went to US. And I focused on the US because my competitor wasn't in the US. So second lesson, go to where your competitor
different markets
isn't killing you. So I went to the US. It was really tough because it was starting from scratch. All my contacts, the chairman that I managed to bring on board, everybody was European, right? So I had no one in US. I knew nobody in US. And I was very lucky that one of the operators we won was actually O2 in the UK. We did manage to win a few operators in Europe. And the CTO at O2 UK liked our product so much that because he was working for an operator in US, he actually made an introduction for us. And I really owe him a lot for that, because that warm introduction really got us into the door, right? And then that was so AT&T, which in San Francisco is one of the big telco companies. And it took me, even after that warm, high-level introduction that I had, it took me 1 year of literally living in the US. Like, I didn't see my kids, I would say, for, a very long time. I had to stay there. And then I used to come back to UK and go back again, but I used to stay for a month, come back for a week, go back out a month, that kind of thing. That happened for about a year, and we managed to then win AT&T. But even after I won AT&T, and this was 2006 now, right? So this is 4 years on. I knew that even if I, got everybody in the US, the market just was gone, right? I think I got the revenues of the company to 2 million from zero, which, you might think, actually, that's not bad. That's pretty good after 4 years. But actually, for the market I was at, for the sector I was in, I knew that, this was gonna dive, and this wasn't gonna take the company forward, and eventually, my revenues were gonna decline. So I had to come up with a second product to really take it to the next level. And that's when I had to change my team, because I came up with a second product, but the team that I had, the engineering team that I had, wasn't suitable. So I actually, at the time, my husband was the CTO of the company for the first product, but I knew that for the second product, I needed to hire in a new CTO. So I actually went and hired a new CTO. By the way, I'm still married to my husband, just in case you guys.
Did you fire your husband?
It was like asking him to not be the CTO. That's the difference there. So anyway,
I mean, I really admire that relationship.
It wasn't easy. But as an entrepreneur, especially if you take on the CEO role, you have to make tough decisions. So you've got to do what's best for the company. And what was best for the company was to do that. And so, and obviously, I was lucky that he's a very logical, person, and he understood why I was doing it. But obviously, this was a tough decision. So brought a new CTO. We started a new product development, and this product was completely different to the first one. It was real time, gathering data from lots of handsets, understanding, using mathematics to figure out the location of all these, because we didn't have GPS in those days. So we had to do triangulation using radio waves and things like that. So we came up with some new mathematics to do that. And we launched so everything was going really well. We launched in 2008 until it didn't. And financial crisis happened, 2008, 2009. And when financial crisis happens and the world kind of shut down and all the operators stopped spending, and that was a really tough time. So we launched a product at exactly the wrong moment. But sometimes there's nothing you can do about those kinds of things. Like Corona happens, like what are you going to do? You just have to survive, right? So when the financial crisis happened, I just had to survive. We had to let go of some people. So it's the first time that I actually made redundancies in my company. That was very tough for me, but we had to survive. And we got some extra investment from our investors, so they were very supportive. Until 2010, things started getting much better. But I guess the advantage that that gave us was the time. We had more time to really test our product, and we got a lot of traction with our new product. And then I also hired a head of sales, because I was doing all the selling up to that point, and I knew that me selling all the time wasn't going to be scalable. So I brought in a head of sales, and in 2009, so we launched 2008, brought in a head of sales 2009. Actually, quite counterintuitive, because when you're letting go people, why would you bring a head of sales? In fact, it's the other way around. When times are tough, you want really good front guys, because selling, you're not gonna save your way out of trouble. You're gonna spend your way out of trouble. You're gonna spend in the right areas to make sales happen, so that you effectively come out of trouble. And we managed to go from 2 million revenue, which was like in 2007. To 40 million revenue, in 2 million revenue in 2009 to 40 million, 40, in 2013. So it was a huge explosion of growth. The second product went extremely well. And because I learned a lot of mistakes in my launch of my first product and selling it, I did not make those mistakes again in the second one. And then 2013, we sold the company to a multi-billion dollar sort of US company. And then I come to the final chapter of which I am still living right now, is I kind of left the acquirer, the company who bought my company, and I focused. So now I do my own angel investments. I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs. I take board roles, and that's what I've been doing since 2015. Obviously, I had a successful exit with my own company, but I've had 2 successful exits now as a investor and board member. So hopefully it's not just luck. Hopefully I know what I'm doing. And now, very recently, I went all the way back again. I've accepted to become CEO of another startup. So wow. This is and I had my first board meeting today, in fact, in Oxford, as CEO of this company, this new, newly formed company. So I've sort of gone all the way back again.
Full circle.
To the full circle. I'm doing it again. And you might think, are you crazy? But once you start a company and you grow a company, there's nothing like it. It's so hard. It's honestly, it was 1,000. It was 1,000 times harder than I thought. Right, when I started it, I knew it was going to be hard, and everyone says, "Oh yeah, it's going to be hard," but you don't imagine how hard it is. It was literally 1,000 times harder, but I tell you, it was 1,000,000 times more rewarding.
And do you see with the people you're mentoring now, do you see them going through exactly the same challenges, or would you say with the new generation things have changed?
I would say challenges are okay. So they are similar in nature, But the good news, right, is that there's a lot of help at hand. So, in my times, like I said, there really weren't all that many people like me. There weren't in Europe, right? In US they were, right? But in Europe, we didn't have lots of successful entrepreneurs who'd sold their companies and they were helping other entrepreneurs. Now it's far better in Europe, right? Now we've got loads of incubators. We have a lot of entrepreneurs who've been there, done it, and they're sharing their experience, their angel investing, and it's a lot easier, I would say now. But the challenges are the same, right? Because at the end of the day, you've never done it before, and you're going through everything for the first time. But of course, to have someone that you can bounce ideas off, or if they don't know, they know somebody who might know the answer. Clearly, that's far more helpful than kind of learning it on the job yourself, which is what I had to do. Yeah.
No, this was very, very interesting story. And we have a lot of questions about it, which we'll get to in the QA session. But since the topic of the discussion was about investing in women and our organization is focused on diversity and inclusion, I wanted to ask you what has your experience been investing in women founders, and what are some of the trends you've noticed over the past years? Same with mentoring founders.
Yeah, so I have to say that we're still struggling in terms of equality, right? Even in Europe, right? So there was a study that was done by the British Business Bank, and they said for every dollar of investment, only 1p goes to all founder female teams. And only 10p goes to a mix of female and male founder. That's really poor, right? That means 90% of the money goes to male founders or all male founders. And this is, happening right now. This is, and I think, from an investor perspective, the other statistics I want to just add here, because this is important. Actually, there was a study that was done by, I think it was a Boston consultancy that was looking at startups. They looked at female-founded startups, and what they found was that female-founded startups return 40% more money back to their investors than their male counterparts. So, if a female is leading the startup, you're far more likely to get more money back than a male person, according to this study. But yet, investors are backing mostly men. And
is it, if I may be not a devil's advocate, but a bit of a devil's advocate, is it just a numbers game? More men are applying?
Of course, yes. I think there is definitely top of the funnel problem, right? So you need more women, wanting to start businesses and putting themselves out there. That's definitely true. But also, I think, at the bottom of the funnel, we do have these stereotypes, right? So, and for investors, for example, 20 years ago, all the investors I went and pitched to, they were all men. There were no female partners in the VC firms, for example. I just happened to find one that had a female partner, and they invested in my company, And so it was, so you have these prejudices as well that you have to overcome, right? It's a lot better now, right? So now every major VC that you look at, they have female partners. And I think that really helps, right? But you're right, the top of the funnel also needs to, get more. Like you need to have more women wanting to start their own businesses, because if they don't, then obviously, like you said, it's a numbers game as well. But it is interesting, this disparity between women and men from an investment perspective.
And did you find that your technical background as an engineer gave you an edge?
Undoubtedly. I was in the industry. I understood the industry. I had worked in that industry. So as an engineer, I understood the problem I was solving. I didn't have the other skills, as I mentioned, the sales and marketing, and which obviously is very important. In fact, I've come to the conclusion, another lesson to share with you. Technology is only 20%, makes up 20% of your ultimate success. It's a really important 20%. It's got to work. But the rest of it has got nothing to do with technology. It's about building the team. It's about building your culture. It's about selling properly, your go-to market. It's about which partners you choose. It's a whole, how do you position vis-a-vis your competition? It's a whole host of different, technology is really very, actually a small part of it. And as an engineer, looking back at when I first launched the first product, right? Those days, I thought, if I have the best product, it will win. So wrong. That was completely wrong. And so now it's not just having the best product, it's having everything in place for you to win in the market. And that's a big lesson that I learned in my first, what I call my first startup within the startup. So
undoubtedly. And we find sometimes that maybe within the accelerators that I've seen around, you get a lot more business people coming in and hiring the technologists. Do you think that model is as effective?
I mean, look, depends on what you're trying to solve. I think ultimately it's about solving a problem, right? You don't have to be an engineer to come up with a good idea. If you can be anyone, right? You can be working in any sector and see a huge problem. Like there was a lady that I was talking to, and she had small children in London, and she was finding it really tough to find nannies, like really good nannies that she could leave her kids. I was lucky, actually, something I should have said when I was talking about my stories, that if I didn't have my mom looking after my kids, like there's no way I could have done what I've done, right? So she was my co-founder, or the co-founder in shadow, and everybody needs one of those, right? If you're trying to found the company, you need co-founders in shadow. But she did, she literally was having a job. She had a job, and she's not an engineer. I think she's an accountant or something. Anyway, she needed nannies that she could look after her kids, that she could trust, but she couldn't find, she would agencies, she didn't know she would send someone who would leave after 2 weeks. And it was a real horrible thing. So she's like, that's it. I'm starting a company to do this. And now she's raised loads of money. She's really, her company is going really well. And she actually didn't start it with technology. She started with Excel sheet. And she phoned lots of, good childminders, and she got them on her Excel sheet database. Then she advertised, and she got lots of moms to come and, and then she started earning revenue. And then she thought, okay, I better get a software engineer to, streamline this. So you can do it in multiple ways, but you have to solve the fundamental thing is you have to solve a problem. If you're solving a real problem that not only you have, but lots of market. Okay, can I have a successful business? Then it depends on how that market. If this only boils down to you and let's say 10 other people, you don't have a business, right? But if the problem that you're having boils down to millions of people having the same problem, then clearly there's... Hello, Mahtab, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, my connection went off for a second. I do have one more question before we go to the Q&A, if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so how do you make investment decisions? And when it comes to female founders, do you look for the same characteristics or different characteristics? What kind of questions do you ask before investing in someone? What sort of opportunities could people look for if they're trying to start companies?
Yeah, so in terms of my own investment, of a company, so I've stopped my angel investment because I don't have time anymore. But when I did my angel investment, there were three things I look at very carefully. I look at the team, right, the founders. That's really for me critical, regardless of whether they're female, male. It doesn't matter. Black, red, white, orange. I don't really care. I look at, first of all, I ask a lot of questions about their past, right? I like people with interesting backgrounds. I think, for example, reasons I was really resilient was that I always tell everybody that by the time I was 14, I experienced a revolution, a war, and immigration. So 3 extremely traumatic experiences that was all change, right? So I was 9 years old when the revolution happened. I was 11 years old when the war happened with Iraq. And I came here when I was 14. So every couple of years, I was like, whoa, the world sort of changes. And so that adaptability, I know helped me later on in life, because I was conditioned to accept change. And in a startup, change is going to happen, whether you like it or not. Nothing stays the same, and you have to adapt. And so I look for that quality. The second thing I look at, once I get myself comfortable with the team, if I'm not comfortable with the team, I don't care how big the market is, how brilliant the product is, I don't invest. The next thing is I look at the market size. I look at, okay, how large is this market? How many people are you solving this problem for, right? Is this like a tiny market where, it's going to be a really niche thing, which is going to be really hard to reach and expensive to reach. And therefore, as an investor, ultimately it's not going to make sense. Or is it a very large market and so on? And then finally, I look at the product. So the technology for me is the last thing, but it's still one of the top 3, because I want to make sure that they have differentiation and why are you different and all of those types of questions. So those 3 things I look at. And you ask me, do I look for characteristics that might be different for female founders? Not really. But one thing I would say is that if I find a female founder where I really like them and they pass the other, which is the market size and the product, I would invest in a female founder in a heartbeat, because it is my belief that women make much, much better leaders than men. And I don't want to be sexist or anything else, because I've worked with some really amazing men who are very good leaders and so on. But on the whole, I believe that women will make amazing leaders. And so for that reason, if I could find somebody that has all of those ticks, all of the 3 boxes, and it's a female founder, that would be my dream. I haven't found them yet, unfortunately.
Oh wow, okay. Not even one?
No.
What about mentees?
Oh yeah, I do have female mentees, but they haven't started a company. They're just in careers and things like that, which I talk to every now and again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And does that change your attitude? I suppose if they're, you know, I suppose you can't expect everyone to want to start a company. It's a very different lifestyle. But
yeah, exactly.
the same
So
advice applies to someone who is in a corporate environment.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I mean, corporate. I would say I'm kind of less familiar with. I mean, of course, I worked for Vodafone, and then after my company was acquired, the company I was general manager was very large. But I would say corporate, I'm kind of less familiar with career paths and things. I'm more familiar with the smaller companies and things like that, but or medium-sized companies. But no problem. So I've got 1 hour. She wants to ask me some.
Right. I think we lost Shirin. Mahtab, John, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah.
But is it, so it's not my connection?
No, it's not your connection. I think we lost Shirin. Gonna try. Oh, there she is. She's back.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
No worries.
Yeah. For some reason, it just kicked me out. Now I'm back.
No worries. Yeah, I'm thinking it might be hopping. We are a bit behind schedule.
Okay.
So if we can wrap up, Mahtab, there are quite a few questions
Yeah,
in the
I see
Q&A.
there are some questions. Okay.
If we can go through a couple of them, and then if we move to the sessions, people actually can come over and ask the questions face to face.
Sure.
For Shirin Jah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So there
Yeah.
are a couple of questions that have had more votes. So I'll ask those ones. One is about where do you see the UK investor market after Brexit?
Hello.
Hello? I can hear you.
That's interesting.
Hello?
I can hear both of you. Shirin John, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I can't hear Mahtab.
Oh, I can hear both of you.
Yeah.
Let me go and come back in.
Should I read the question, Mahtab, John? The first question,
Sure, go ahead.
with the highest vote is, where do you see UK investor market after Brexit? I think it's an interesting one.
Oh, yeah, right. Look, I think technology investment is going to continue. I don't see that being impacted. There was a period where a lot of the UK VCs were really concerned that they weren't going to get as much money from Europe, but because London in particular and UK is such a hotbed for startups in Europe, that actually it hasn't really made a lot of difference. There's still a lot of capital, really high quality companies to back. So personally, I think from a tech perspective, Brexit so far hasn't made a big impact from an investment perspective. What it has made an impact, unfortunately, is a lot of people don't choose UK anymore as somewhere they want to be. A lot of people who were trying to make a life here left. Quite a few people who left go back to their country or to go to Germany or to France or whatever. And of course, that skill gap is problematic. But then again, with the whole Corona thing, now people are employed from everywhere, so maybe even that doesn't matter anymore. So yeah, in short, I don't think it will have a big impact. It hasn't so far. So
good. Mahtab, are you back? Can you hear us?
I can hear you both. Can you hear me?
I can. Shirin Jan?
I can't hear. I can hear you, but I can't hear Mahtab.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Arif, I'm gonna leave the
don't worry. Yeah.
the other questions to you.
Yeah.
But there are two
no
more
worries.
that are very interesting.
Yeah. The next question, and I think I'm gonna finish with this one. I'm sorry, everyone. There are loads of questions here, but I think then maybe it's the best if you ask the questions in person in the sessions from Shirin. I'll finish with this last question. Why is it extremely hard to find female investors?
Oh, again, it comes back to what I was saying. The top of the funnel is not that much. So you don't have a lot of women wanting to start their business. Then you've got this, prejudice, whatever, at the bottom of the funnel. So when you like I said to you, like only 1p goes to all female, founder teams. That's terrible. And only 10p to a mix of female and so, because of these differences, of course, the female who come out the other end, like me, who kind of go through the whole process, then it just gets narrower and narrower and narrower. This is why, I think it's getting better. People like me, they're going back into investment, and that helps. But it is unfortunate that we just don't have a lot of women who've started business, who've exited business, who've gone into investment. And I think it's just a numbers game, as Mahtab was saying. We just don't have the numbers.
Wonderful. One more question. This one is an interesting one, and I think many of the ladies here would like to know about that. How motherhood has shaped your success journey? And then it will be my last question, right. I promise.
Motherhood. Okay, so I think there are specific challenges that female founders have, right? And one of the challenges, right? How do you manage a high demanding startup with high demanding small children, right? That's a big challenge. And like I said, you need to have co-founders in the shadow. My co-founder in the shadow was my mom, and really, so she did most of the mothering. One thing I would say is that actually a startup, for those of you who've had kids, right? And I don't know how many of you are out there who have children. My children are now grown up, right? One has finished university and is doing a master's now, and the other one is just started university. But actually starting a startup is like having another child. It's weird. It's exactly the same stages. So you start with like the baby phase, where you have to do everything for the startup, right? You don't sleep at night. You're doing everything that's possible, humanly possible, to make it work, and so on. And then you get to like the sort of the childhood age, where they're doing some stuff for themselves, but you still have to do a lot of things. And then they get to teenage, when they're they go crazy, and you just try to stop them from doing the wrong thing. And hopefully, if all goes well, you take them to adulthood, which is when they all mature. And then if you are taken away from the business as CEO, the business doesn't fall apart. And I always say, for anybody who starts a company, your goal as CEO should be to make yourself redundant. because that means once you've done that, that means you've arrived. Your company is going to stay and is going to continue without you as the person, and that's quite important. So I don't know whether that's answered the question, but hopefully it has.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you very much, Shirin Jan. So I'm very sorry about the technical glitch.
That's
You know, it's virtual event, it happens.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight, today, wherever you are. We're going to move this conversation to the sessions. We have a room for Shirin Jan to continue the conversation face-to-face with you guys. So if you'd like to join us there in that room, so we can have this conversation continue there. I'd like to thank Mahtab as well. I don't know, Mahtab, if you can hear me. I'd like to thank you very much. It was a very, very interesting story. I really enjoyed it, Shirin Jan, very much. It was very informative as well. I hope everyone enjoyed. Bring your questions to the room and ask them from Shirin yourself. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice evening. Have a good day, wherever you are. Bye. We see you soon.
Great. Do I stay here?
We all go to the sessions. If you click on the sessions to the left side, you see it's now live. You can go there.
Yeah, I got you.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.